Giants were relegated at the end of the spring split by these challenger teams that climbed all the way up the beanstalk and took them down to the village below. The problem with that is now the Giants have ruled over the challenger teams. Undefeated in the first 4 weeks of the split, they've looked incredibly dominant.
She's saying hook, Jactroll, the heel comes out. Oh! There's the shockwave though on Magic Felix. They could take the explosive cast of Cataclysm as well. Tal is gonna fall here to red. She doesn't even need it.
The meta, however, fits Wind and Rain. Dan loves to play tank junglers. Woolite loves to play these scaling AD carries like Tristana. This is the time, potentially with the meta, for Wind and Rain to actually succeed.
Secure the kill, but Venter's going to be able to trade that one up. Kadra in the front line now, petrifying gaze. Isn't going to hit anybody as Wind and Rain find himself a triple kill.
The difficulty now for these challenger teams like Wind and Rain that raise up against the Giants is there's not going to be a happily ever after.
Well, with one item and with Sword Shoot, this is going to be very dangerous. There comes the shockwave. It's only going to land on one. That's going to double bomb right into another one. Ruin just ruins War as they just melt them.
Giants look absolutely dominant from the jungle. Everything has fit Giants' playstyle in the summer split.
Welcome to our first Challenger clash in the European Challenger playoffs between Giants Gaming and Wind and Rain. After 5 weeks, the split has led us here to Berlin to decide which teams get the chance to fight for a spot in the big leagues. Hello everyone, I'm Aaron Medic Chamberlain, and I am joined by the beautiful, the Welsh, the wonderful James Stress O'Leary.
I'm glad that beautiful and Welsh go a lot in the same sentence.
No, the thing is they're usually
but...
paradox, so I had to include them both in the same thing.
Well, so much of today's matchup seems to be about size, and unfortunately, that means I have to look up at you for the rest of the broadcast. Let's take a look at exactly how the teams managed to qualify for the spot here in the playoffs. Look, I'm just messing. I'm messing with you.
That's all right. I'm messing with you too, Chess. It's good. And throughout the split, Giants have been messing with the opposition as well. Went undefeated for the first 4 weeks, claiming 12 points for themselves. Wind and Rain at the bottom of the playoff bracket, but still making it in to these all-decisive playoffs.
And unfortunately for PSG and Origin, an unsuccessful split in Challenger means they have been eliminated from Challenger Series. They will have to re-qualify once again. But here today, we're talking obviously about Giants and Wind and Rain. Those are two of the teams that qualified, but that's not the only matchup.
Yeah, another matchup next week. Here are our upcoming matchups in the European Challenger Series playoffs. Kicking off today, as you said, Stress, it's Giants Gaming taking on Wind and Rain. And next week, we have a titanic affair as Schalke 04 face off against Team RB.
A lot of hype about both teams, the way that they will build, the organizations they represent, so that's going to be a great matchup. But I think this one today is a very interesting clash of styles, and we're looking forward to getting into this matchup pretty quickly.
Yeah, after being relegated from the European LCS in 2017 Spring Split, Giants are looking for vengeance, starting with tonight's battle. Their lineup is as follows. It's Ruin up in the top lane. In the jungle is Gilius. jizuke is their mid laner. minitroupax, their AD carry, and Jactroll, their support.
Yeah, this Giants lineup you mentioned, relegated by Misfits Academy in the last split, but realistically, nobody expected the Giants to rebuild quite as strong as they did, and they have dominated the European Challenger Series all the way through the summer split. The most interesting thing perhaps about this lineup is their AD carry, minitroupax. He has been a very solid player for Giants, and it's always fun to see one of these AD carries come out of the woodwork that we haven't really heard too much about before and dominate some pretty stiff challenger opposition.
And what I love about minitroupax is the balance in his style. He went unkilled in the first 3 weeks of Challenger Series playing this defensive Caitlyn meta, and then he moved into more Jhin, more Kalista, where he could make these big aggressive plays.
And you saw the Jhin there. I wonder whether he'll get his hands on it. Of course, 7.14 is the patch we are playing on. And you've seen just how impressive minitroupax can be on one of these lethality AD carries.
I'm just bringing attention to that CS differential at 15 minutes. 15 farm ahead of his lane opponent on average at the 15-minute mark. That's a monumental total for an AD carry.
Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive laning AD carry, and Giants haven't had to show much more than laning, really, against most of their teams, only dropping one series to Schalke at the end of the split. So we have to look now towards their opponents, Wind and Rain. Very different history. One of the newer teams on the European scene. And we can check out their lineup. Actually starting in the top lane, a different top laner for them than we saw in the regular split. It's Aaron 1 coming in for JWoww, then Dan in the jungle, Larssen as a mid laner, Woolite as AD carry, and AOD as support.
And they are an interesting team in terms of where they've come from and what the team has developed into, because Wind and Rain as an organization qualified through the Challenger Series qualification tournament alongside Team RB, but then their entire roster went over to the Origin lineup and represented them for Challenger Series. This roster is completely new, even newer with Aaron coming in the top side, and is known more for their later game team fights, their strength in coordination as you get later on into the match.
And I think that comes from some of the individual players that are Challenger veterans, the likes of Dan. He loves tanks out of the jungle. This is a perfect meta for him. And Woolite, he was playing Tristana when nobody else was. A whole long time ago, after the Tristana reworks years back, he was still trying to pull Tristana out in that bottom lane. And we always were like, oh, this doesn't quite fit what everybody's trying to do in the meta. But right now, 7-14, team fighting, scaling AD carries, late game decisions around fights is exactly what Wind and Rain want to do. But our question has to be, can Wind and Rain get there? Because they gave up so many leads in the early game during the regular split for Challenger that, honestly, Giants have looked dominant, and that's where they're likely to punish Wind and Rain.
And I think this statistic is going to be a defining statistic of the series today. Giants, on average, 5,500 gold ahead of their opponents at the 15-minute mark. Wind and Rain only 500 gold ahead. It is still positive for them, but when you subtract their lead from Giants, Giants are still looking at a 5k advantage.
Yeah, 5.5k. No extra expletives needed on that one. But we were talking earlier about how 500 gold leads is something that there are quite a few LCS teams that don't actually match up to on that one. I know, obviously, the competition is different when you're facing against the likes of G2 and H2K, but the fact that Wind and Rain have been at least ahead on average means maybe we see them hang through against Giants here.
There are positives for Wind and Rain. You know, they took a game off Schalke, something Giants weren't able to do. They took a game off RB, something Giants weren't able to do. They have benefits when they get later on into the game. And even though they're coming in as the 4th seed from playoffs from the Challenger Series, Misfits Academy, who are now Mysterious Monkeys, came in as the 4th seed, and they made it all the way to the LCS. So it's not over until it's over in these playoff matches.
I was wondering which idiom you were going with there. I had Fat Lady singing in my head at that point for that one. But the one thing, as you're mentioning, is Challenger is a little bit of a different ball game to the LCS. I'm expecting slightly different draft priorities. Likely to still see Elise Zac banned away as you would on 7-14. Likely to see the Maokai, but there's going to be a couple of other picks that slip through the ban phase or go into the ban phase. The likes of Aaron, who, an Aatrox, one trick, well, not necessarily one trick, but it's his big play.
Yeah, for a long time, Aaron was an Aatrox one trick, and
it's banned.
It's banned against him by the Giants, so they want to take away that, and they want to take away Woolite's Tristana as well. Yep. Wind and Rain going for the Callisto against minitroupax.
And I think we might even see Sejuani banned away by Giants as well. Either that or priority on it, because Dan, again, another one of these picks he was playing when it wasn't meta. Pre-Sejuani reworks, he was trying to pull this champion out in the jungle when everybody was doing the Rek'Sai, Lee Sin, Gragas thing back in 2016 spring. So he was still trying to get these champions and shoehorn them in.
Thresh will be taken away from Jactroll, something he's played very well across the course of the splits, and also something that AOD's played well for Wind and Rain. Final ban from Giants is the Cho'Gath, so they are trying to isolate some of those more meta 7-14 picks.
But that means Elise or Zac is getting through this. If you ban out the Zac here, obviously that gives Giants first pick Elise, but look, Giants, we talked about early game, it's Gilius. Regular EU LCS viewers will know and recognize Gilius from a long history here in Europe. That would be one pickup, but look, if you already know you have a solid early game, draft the team fighting jungler that is the best, that is the S tier. He's picked up the Zac here. Wind and Rain may end up going the Elise, or just vacate it completely and go towards that Sejuani, the Gragas, these kind of picks.
Exactly, and I think that suits Dan a little bit more. So Dan actually brought out another power pick earlier on in the split. About 7-13, he was playing this Maokai in the jungle before even the LCS and the LCK were picking it up. Alongside that, he plays a lot of Nunu.
Yes, he has 4 games this split of Nunu on record. And Nunu, while it isn't the best tank, we've got a different Frost-themed tank for team fights. We talked about it coming into this, about how the jungle matchup is going to be important for Wind and Rain, and look, Sejuani is already coming out here in the first rotation. with the Maokai, that's some pretty strong team fighting.
And it makes me think that Giants really want to get the Braum for themselves here, because Jactroll plays a mean Braum, his second most played across the split, and you want to remove the Sejuani Braum synergy. They are going to go for Gnar first, for Ruin in the top lane. That's his second most played in Challenger Series as well.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Ruin on that pick. You mentioned the Braum, and I would like to see Giants take it away. It obviously would be a great strength for Wind and Rain, but if you pick mid or AD carry here, you can actually now force them to have to react, because suddenly you've got a Gnar, you can ban away counter matchups. You've got a Kog'Maw, you can ban away some difficult lane presence. Look, Kalista gone, Caitlyn gone, Tristana gone already. So if Wind and Rain don't pick up an AD carry like a Varus here, there is a risk that the strong AD carries get banned away. But look, Janna, seen a little bit of play over in LCK, a disengage-focused support. Looking at a Zac, you can push her back, or push him back.
And stop the Gnar from being able to engage as well. Gives you that disengage you were talking about, and you've got so much engage as well from the rest of the lineup. So trying to round out that composition a little bit more. Plays into Wind and Rain, wanting to get later on into the game and try and have these team fights. They'll ban out the Blitzcrank and the Orianna away from jizuke. Giants have removed Corki from the champion pool. I'm
really looking forward to seeing what AOD goes for his runes of mastery setup. Not something that we normally talk about, but Janna, we've been seeing a lot of gold per 5 runes coming through over in the LCK. I'm going to take a look when we get into game as to what AOD is running. But with the Twitch banned away, that was a scaling AD carry taken off the board. And if ever there was a Sivir composition,
just run at them.
Sivir Maokai.
Just run at them, guys.
They're back.
Kelsey Mosler is just rubbing her hands together in glee right now. Sivir, Maokai, Sejuani,
and then
Janna.
wondering, like, is the Janna necessary?
Tailwind. You need the Tailwind
That's
passive.
Fair.
You just
fair.
So you get Ancient Coin quest completion, extra movement speed, and you get Tailwind quest completion. Let's have a look at what Giants are going to lock in. It will be the Braum for their support.
Now, with Orianna banned, that's one of the best defensive mid laners where you're anticipating an engage coming towards you. I wouldn't want to see a Galio come through here for jizuke, but it is a pick that is potential. He's only actually played 3 champions this split. LeBlanc, Echo, and Orianna. Now, Echo, not necessarily in this situation. That's more of a Syndra counter matchup that we've seen come out of jizuke. Speaking of Syndra, that's actually the pick he's going to go for. Lane dominant style, catch potential.
Now, Larssen is a player that's been around for a long time, especially in the UK scene, and he's been known both for his scaling champions, but also for a few picks that are a bit more assassin-based. He is going to go scaling this time, will be his Vladimir locked in for Wind and Rain.
Scaling doesn't even cover it. Medic, this is the most we get past 30 minutes and win the game composition I think I've ever seen. You have a Syndra, you have a Vladimir, you've got a Maokai Sejuani that just says, okay, if you fight us anytime in the late game, we win. And there's 0 possibility that you beat us. But there is that outside chance.
That's my question is, can Giants win the game before Wind and Rain just become out of the picture?
They can. They also don't necessarily need to. I'm kind of hamming up how devastating this is. Kog'Maw still will have good tank shredding damage. We did see Splice struggle with the Kog'Maw in the LCS this past week because Kobby got interrupted a lot on his damage, so we have to now watch how the crowd control affects minitroupax's ability to output damage in these later fights. But certainly, that is one hell of a scary team fighting composition that Wind and Rain have actually created.
It's going to be an interesting one. Wind and Rain drafting towards their usual style. Giants going more for meta picks across the board. If you think they're going to take it, make sure you put in the hashtag GIA win and tweet at us at LOL Esports. If you think war is good for something, then hashtag WAR win. You're going to take the first game of this best of 5 series here, Stress. It's for all the marbles. It's for that promotion slot. Playing up against Mysterious Monkeys and NIP, most likely for the spot in the LCS Spring next season. A lot of these players have not been on the LCS stage before, and the nerves will tell in the first couple of games. We're going to get onto the Summoner's Rift and see if they can prove that they are made of tough stuff.
And as we load on, you spoke about how it's most likely NIP and Mysterious Monkeys, both teams that have been somewhat on the up and up. NIP securing their first win, so some stiffer competition than perhaps you would anticipate. But look, Giants have looked dominant. It is hard to undersell how good this Challenger team has looked. They have their eyes set on getting back into the LCS, and this is step 1 for them. For Wind and Rain, A team that nobody really anticipated being in this situation just a couple of weeks back in CSQ at the beginning of the split. But look, Aaron now tagged up.
Exhausted, flashes away straight away. Concussive blows will not connect. He knew if he'd stayed around any longer, he would have fallen. Woolite and AOD will react and try and get some deep vision.
Now you have to paint a big target on the back of the tree up in the top lane for Aaron. Ruin and Gilius, if they can get into that lane with Gilius coming off his first rotation at level 3, get up to the top side, land that stretching strike and pull back Aaron's Maokai, that is likely to result in a first blood here. So we have to watch how Giants will transition this early lead into potentially first blood.
And I want to come back to that, Stress, because in Picks and Bans we talked a lot about War's composition and we said they scale up really well, they do what War does well, which is have these late game team fights. Giants, on the other hand, have always been an early game focused team. We saw, before we got into the game, a 5,500 gold lead at the 15-minute mark on average. Here, once again, they have a composition that can win lanes. Gnar, a bully into the Maokai. Syndra, a bully into the Vladimir.
Yeah, and those early game matchups we want to see Giants accentuate. Using this Zac, you can get into the lanes very early on. We've already kind of discussed a little bit about that. Giants still have decent team fighting themselves. Zac, Gnar, Syndra, Kog'maw, all still very good. Just the scaling edge does tip in Wind and Rain's favor the later this game goes, but that means we have to watch very carefully at this early game. See how the level 2 is going to be hit by Woolite and AOD likely first here. Is Sivir very good with the ricochet all the way through. Now, this is Sivir on 714, not the 715 buffs, and most certainly not the unhotfixed Sivir.
30 AD on each strike was just crazy.
But we were seeing Sivir come back into the meta anyway. We saw Reckless playing her, these compositions which are very good at running at people. You can see with AOD having the coin as well, likely to look for the Talisman of Ascension. Plus Sivir's on the hunt as well. Just massive amount of movement speed is going to come out from Wind and Rain to start team fights, hopefully in their minds, without Giants being able to react.
Gilius is coming towards mid. Stretching strike will connect. He'll pull back Larssen, who goes straight into the pool. No summoners burnt. And speaking of summoners, he's decided to go for the Ignite in the middle lane. Jizuke's gone for Ghost himself.
Yeah, we've actually seen this matchup go a couple of different ways. Exile from the Unicorns of Love misplayed in this matchup and ended up dying under a tower. So, got to be very careful for Larssen if he does end up pushing back. But look, dodges a stun a little bit. Got pushed back by the E actually first, but for Larssen, there is some sense of kill pressure, but I don't think he's really going to be looked at killing Jizuke in the lane anytime soon.
Yeah, Larssen, across the course of the split, hasn't really cared about getting kills in the lane. He's much more down the farming route. Actually has the highest CS at 20 minutes of any mid laner at 199 average. Whereas Jizuke's been more about harassing his lane opponent. Doesn't mind if he loses out a bit of farm, as long as he can stop his opposing laner from getting some himself.
Yeah, Jizuke's a guy that we've seen in splits before in Challenger that look decent, but there are a couple of other mid laners that started to rise up kind of maybe just that little bit above him when you look at the likes of a Caps, who obviously now plays on Fnatic. Even when Caps was back playing on, I believe it was Nerve, Caps looked very strong. But look, we have to turn our attention to the bottom lane as Dan is looking for the gank up first, recalls out, not getting anywhere. And for Wind and Rain, there's no real rush on this. They're not desperately trying to pressure the lanes. They can afford to be 10 CS behind in each lane if they want to as we go later on in this game. So Dan doesn't actually need to do anything until level 6 at this point. He can just sit back and wait.
And it's strange how much the meta's changed over the course of patch 7.14 as well here, Stress, because in 7.13, if we saw a Zac first pick, we would have said, how on earth has Zac been left up? How on earth has a team got Zac early on? In fact, Gilius played it early on in the split and absolutely dominated on this Zac pick. But here, we say, well, War have accepted the battle of attrition in picks and bans. They got themselves a Maokai and a Sejuani, and they think they can use that to match into the Zac.
I'm still asking how it got through. not so devastating, or ardently. Some great word. Ardently, not so ardently as you would, as you said on previous patches. Zac still maintained a very high ban rate, especially on red side. When you look at the red side bans, we had the Kalista, the Thresh, the Caitlyn. Obviously trying to reduce some of minitroupax effort on impact on the game. We were wondering like what he could do with the likes of a Jhin. If he can get his hands on a Kalista, one of these laning AD carries, that's also a good sign for Giants.
Ruin might be slightly overstepped here because the gank is coming. As you say, Dan's there looking for the stun. Armin, very low, but there is the stun onto Ruin. He tries to jump away. He's going to flash as well. And with the boomerang toss, may be able to escape. Dan flashes in, does get burst blood. Here's Gilius as well, but not in time.
Ruin pushing up too far in the top lane. They were trying to punish Aaron for not having his flash earlier, so he was pushing. Look at the CS lead that Ruin had accrued already. The problem is, Dan finally finds his way topside. We talked about how Dan didn't need to do anything, but if an opportunity like that presents itself, that a Gnar in Mega Gnar form is sat, pushed basically up to the enemy tower. Look, he doesn't now have the luxury of that double hop to get out of this, so Ruin basically has to stand and fight. Actually gets locked down right at the beginning of that animation on his jump. And Ruin from here, a little unfortunate that Dan still had his flash, hadn't done anything to flash before, so Ruin ends up falling from it. And Wind and Rain with the better early game for now, at least when you look at the jungle presence.
And that's really interesting as well, Stress, because at the 1 minute mark, or 1.5 minutes, Armin burnt his flash, and we said Gilius is probably going to look up towards top and try and get these ganks off. Instead, he's been more focused around mid lane, trying to keep Larssen down, and Dan is the jungler that we see having the most impact early on.
And it's not like Zach can't have the impact early. With the elastic slingshot, you can come from some pretty unorthodox angles into a lane. Yes, you do need to wait, and Zach's main presence will be in teamfights. That massive amount of crowd control that comes out from him later on. But I wonder whether that might be the strategy of allowing this Zach to go through here for Giants, is Gilius isn't playing an Elise. Gilius isn't looking to snowball his lanes, and what if he was at this point? Look at how well jizuke is playing into Larssen with the amount of damage coming out. If there was an Elise in this game, maybe they would have been able to punish that flashless Iron. Maybe they'd be able to punish some of the damage down onto Larssen already.
Gilius is known more for his tank junglers as well. Has played a little bit of Elise across the split, but mostly Gragas, mostly Zach. More a utility jungler than a jungler that can really set up plays by himself.
That's very fair, especially looking at this split. I think when you look at previous splits gone by from Gilius, he has had a lot of focus on the early game, and that was his growth as a player, I think, because when Gilius came in, I don't think he would say we weren't telling the truth if we said that he was quite strong opinionated about his own play. He thought great jungler, the Nidalee, the Lee Sins, yeah, exactly. Whereas he actually kind of cooled it a little bit as a player, evolved, matured, brought in these tank junglers that you were looking at. So now we are in a best of 5. I think the fact that he gets his hands on Zach in game 1 is a good test now, back on the stage with this tank jungler. We'll see whether Giants feel like they need to tweak the jungle matchup at all going into subsequent games.
It's an interesting bit of trivia around Giants as well. They actually have 2 gods on their team. God Gilius, of course, and jizuke was previously named Italian God by himself. So 2 gods on the team.
Self-proclaimed.
Exactly. Like Lulex last week.
Yeah,
obviously calling yourself God doesn't really have the best impact on your gameplay when it comes to playoffs. Schalke lost last time. Giants perhaps gonna lose to War this time, but they are
with 8-9 minutes into game 1 with 1 kill.
Jess, we said they scale. They've got 200
basically
gold at 9 minutes. And here is an interesting stat for you. I've been taking after quick shot. This is a Dr. Data quick stat. War, when they have a 10-minute gold lead, have never lost a game.
Ooh.
They very rarely have a 10-minute gold lead, but when they do, they don't lose.
Okay, that's I mean, it's a stat. A stat's a stat.
A stat's a stat.
Get me a scalpel stat, because Wind and Rain right now are looking to surgically remove jizuke from the middle lane, but unfortunately, Dan walks over control ward. Couldn't really get in range to fire at his ultimate.
I was hoping they'd make that play, because then afterwards you could dissect the replay with that scalpel. War.
I've got something to dissect as it is. I talked in Champion Select about AOD's Janna and how LCK have been doing some funny things with Janna. Unfortunately, AOD is running a bit more of a standard Janna, a mix of AP and mana and armor runes.
No gold.
I was hoping it was what I was talking with Wadid about, where when you're running Janna, you run gold quints plus like gold yellows as well. So you just get these gold per 5 just income all the time. And we've seen it a couple of times in LCK, but look, bottom lane, this is where they're trying to secure a little bit of gold as Gilius was trying to get into the lane, but just now going to be used to push back the lane. Look, neither AD carry has recalled this entire game. Up past the 100 CS mark. Feels like we're all the way back in like this time last year.
Exactly, but it does allow minitroupax to scale into the later game. Same with Woolite. Both of them will be getting back, looking at that first half an item to an item completion. Dan is going to get spotted out here by Ruin, who is backing in the bush. Does get caught. Gnar comes out. Larssen has to use the pool in the mid lane. Stretching strike connects, pulls him back into the unleashed power. He's going to flash. Is he going to be able to escape from this one? Lots of healing coming out from the Hemo Plague. Gilius and jizuke still on the chase. Gilius flashes in. That's the first kill for Giants.
The Giants get on the board. It looks like Ruin got out from the top side as well as Wind and Rain. We were talking about how Larssen was being punished and pressured in the middle lane, forced to trade in order to get the CS, and that's why he was low health. Ends up dying. jizuke now has the assist. It's Gilius that picked up the kill.
And that's Gilius actually having an effective gank. We said he doesn't need to do it too early, but he has hit level 6.
Yeah, this is as Gilius level 7. Couldn't quite get the range on the ultimate to come through. Was waiting for the flash from Larssen so that he could actually drag him back in. But look, Gilius doesn't actually use it in the end of all things. Nice dodge from Larssen to dodge the E, but unfortunately not enough as the flash into W out of Gilius is enough to pick up that kill.
And Gilius and jizuke could go a little bit more aggressive there because they knew Dan was up in the top side of the map as Ruin had just escaped a gank. Larssen, with no ghost, wasn't able to try and run his way away with the Sanguine Pool, and hasn't actually used that Ignite yet in lane either, so we'll have to see how effective that is perhaps later in the game, maybe looking to get it on towards minitroupax. Having the first set of items being completed here, Stress, specifically I want to look at the AD carries.
Oh yes.
minitroupax has gone Wit's End first on this Kog'Maw.
Going for on-hit Kog'Maw right now as well. You know, we end up seeing the Guinsoo's Rage Blade. A lot of the time it's Blade of the Ruin King first item. Of course, Wit's End's going to give him attack speed. Magic resist is another key thing here because in the early fights, the Maokai, the Vladimir, the amount of damage that's going to come is a little bit less than you would expect anyway, and now that you've got magic resist on top of it, that'll also help him out. You, of course, steal away some of that magic resistance as well with your basic attacks on a target. So we'll see how that actually offends.
It probably will be quite offensive for war.
Affecting minitroupax damage as we go later.
Top lane now has a 50 farm lead for Ruin. This is something we've really seen from him a lot throughout this split. He's stepping into his own as a top lane carry. Up until now, has only played in the Challenger Series qualification tournaments, but this has been the split for Ruin to show his stuff. Very good on Jarvan, good at roaming around the map and getting ganks off, but this Gnar has been a power pick for him when he wants to dominate a lane.
We've also got to keep in mind that Aaron isn't the permanent top laner for Wind and Rain. In previous games, it's been JWoww throughout the split. As Aaron now gets engaged upon. A little bit of a miss by Ruin, but we're looking mid lane, which means probably in comes Gilius.
Once again, Sanguine Pool used by Larssen. Stretching strike will pull him back. Doesn't quite connect because there's no minions there. And Larssen uses the Hemo Plague just to force jizuke.
Look how low this turret is. jizuke has constantly been pushing up in the lane. Gilius just going to charge the elastic slingshot because if Larssen steps under to defend, he ends up getting killed and the tower goes down. Again, Giants, they've fought back in this early game. Did we have a measure? Was it at 10 minutes there was a lead for Wind and Rain?
I think it was even. I didn't see exactly, but I'm sure we can try and find out.
I'll tell you what, I'll find out for you.
You can find out for us. At the 15-minute mark, though, it looks like it's going to be a lead for Giants. They have got first tower, they've got the first dragon, and they have a pretty commanding 1,500 gold lead.
It was dead even.
The stat remains, even if war lose now.
To one significant figure, at least.
Well, yeah, we'll take it to one
yeah,
significant
exactly.
figure.
Like, my detective skills are no better than what the client would afford me at this point. But look, that mid lane gank, the presence that has been built up again and again by Giants, was what we wanted to see. This early game impact out of Gilius, jizuke maintaining his leads from the middle lane that we've seen in the previous games in the regular season.
Being able to harass Larssen out as well. Yes, it has been a little bit of a 2v1 lane at times, but keeping Larssen under wraps, stopping him from getting this heavy farm advantage. AOD's going to get jumped on Woolite with the on the hunt and a great knock-up from AOD stops Gilius in his tracks, but the pullback's still going to connect. Jactroll with a Glacial Fissure will force them back under the tower, and Giants are looking for this turret.
Oh, jizuke's still on his way as well.
Ruin is here, teleports in, Woolite with the heal, concussive blows. Jactroll might fall, not quite.
Ooh.
Mini survives as well, and they will be able to get the second tower of the game for Giants.
So 2 back-to-back engages in the bottom lane. AOD didn't use his ultimate to deny Gilius entry to the lane on the first time, so he actually had free reign to get the flashes from Woolite on that initial exchange. From there, Giants continue the push. They allow Ruin to teleport down. Aaron, it looks like he cancelled his TP to come down to the bottom side as well. And that means it's another tower going down, and it's Ruin that gets this gold as well. Massive amount of gold in his pocket will just exacerbate this top lane lead.
And this, we see the initial engage, and I thought War had got out.
Yeah, I thought so as well, because I was like, okay, AOD has actually held his ultimate here, but Woolite doesn't get any block on that stretching strike, and in came Ruin very early on here. It looks like Aaron had just teleported up to the top side in order to hold his tower. That means he wasn't able to get down to the bottom side. minitroupax, nice pickup onto Woolite, and AOD was already running for the hills there. It just means that Giants utilizing this early game Zac a lot better than the first few minutes of the game that we kind of say we want to see more from Gilius.
And this was the Giants we expected to see as well. Early game leads has been a paramount point to their success. Time and time again, they do manage just to force out the enemy, and even with it only being around 3,000, it's still 3,000 gold 16 minutes in. War very much on the back foot against a composition that still scales okay into the later portions of the game.
But now you have to look at, is the team fight synergy of Wind and Rain significantly better than Giants at this point to win a team fight with this kind of deficit? Look, Maokai heavily down in the lane, but has a Righteous Glory. The ultimate is available. He's past level 11. He's actually just about even on experience. The same, Vlad, past level 11. But look, Woolite takes so much damage. Here's a fight top lane.
Glacial Fissure blocked out by Jactroll. He came in with the Unbreakable at the perfect moment.
Yeah, you can see Wind and Rain trying to just contest against the Rift Herald play. The Giants have taken this down, and we'll be able to now funnel this in for another tower, and top tower is already quite low, so I believe they're actually just going to head elsewhere on the map right now. Gilius is going to look for an engaged top side. He has his ultimate available, so they may just try and break this without even using the Rift Herald.
And if they can do that, they can then use the Rift Herald for a secondary turret, which is a lot harder to get damage down onto.
And one of the reasons why there's not a lot of threat here against Giants is the fact that, remember, Aaron, no teleport available, and okay, Ruin doesn't have his either, but Ruin is already so significantly far ahead in this matchup that he is happy keeping Aaron basically under his tower. Maokai is afforded no room on the map to make a play, and that's realistically, at this point, the only thing Wind and Rain can count on Aaron for is turning a team fight with Nature's Grasp, his ultimate.
In the past, when we've seen War use the Maokai, it has been more from the jungle role. He's been more to try and disengage people from the tower, try and get those flanks off here. Playing into the Gnar, he has really struggled to be able to get any purchase in the game. 50 farm behind. He's losing out on those tower golds that we see being given over to Giants, and it means that Giants can push into the jungle and steal away buffs very successly.
Yeah, and this is a good usage of this winning lane, this crushing lane as well. It's about 1,500 gold is the actual lead of Ruin over Aaron. That means basically when Ruin has his Frozen Mallet completed, Aaron is maybe at best going to have half of his next item. And that means there's no way of Aaron running away down that long lane.
Giants might get collapsed on here, as we do see Dan and AOD on their way. Dan looking to come across the wall, knocked back by jizuke, and Giants will react to it in time, but this came about because of vision control. Look at War's top side of the map. They have almost perfect control of the river, and Giants are struggling to answer with wards of their own.
Yeah, but look at this. Giants want to go aggressive in the middle lane. They've grouped all their carries.
Gilius onto Woolite, gets the knock-up. Larssen there as well. Here's Dan, but already we see Woolite just melted. jizuke didn't even use the Unleashed power there. Giants, a man up once again, can look for the push with the Rift Herald.
Rift Herald can get spawned here. It looks like that's exactly what they're going for. And while the minion wave has died, a new one will join it soon, and Giants have enough fighting strength that they can actually pressure out here behind the tower. All they've got to be careful of is that Nature's Grasp, but look at the damage Rift Herald has already inflicted upon that tower, and only now can Aaron really get in position for that ultimate.
Gilius jumps in once again and knocked back onto Dan. That's a dead ball. It's an easy meal for them to take, and Giants once again just looking unstoppable in the face of war.
But look at the timing. Dan is dead, 23 seconds, and 1 second later, the Baron finishes its spawn animation. This might be one of the quickest Barons in Challenger Series or EU LCS history, because on the spawn, Wind and Rain look for it, but here comes the TP. Aaron just trying to delay them.
No ultimate on Aaron, but Gilius is going to try and jump onto the tree. Knocked back in the jungle, stretching strike, pulls him in. And War might just leave the Maokai for dust. And we'll be able to get to the blast cone as AOD gets close enough to him. Giants unable to take the Baron. You cursed it, Stress.
I did.
We could have had a Baron at 20 seconds. 20 minutes.
That would have been an impressive Baron at 20 seconds. So this is the play that started it off. Look, Gilius unwarded. You mentioned how good the vision control was on the top side, but it wasn't quite so good on the bottom side. Look, Woolite tried to block out the engage from Gilius, and Gilius didn't even get a chance to finish channeling his ultimate there before that Sivir popped. And from that, Giants just run right through. Rift Herald was spawned. Ruin already trying to push into Wind and Rain's territory to try and look for that big Gnar play, but even with a Janna shield on that tower, easily Giants step up to the plate, take it down, turn for the Baron, and they got the teleport out of Baron. That's exactly what they wanted, because now Giants, yes, Ruin did use his teleport as well very recently, but Giants can just keep Aaron in that side lane and they win the engage to the other side of the map anyway.
This is the first tower of the game for War. They do eke a little bit of that gold back, but they're still 5,000 behind at the 20-minute mark. And you look down the scaling and you say, okay, Aaron is behind in that lane. You kind of have to accept that he's going to be a CC bot for the rest of the game. Larssen's even with jizuke. Woolite is even with minitroupax. Is that enough for War to be able to start winning out teamfights?
Not as it is, and that's not to damn the War lineup here to a lost game, but one thing Giants have shown a capability of is actually closing games with a lead like this. In general, they have been very good at taking a lead, transferring it into a win, which is something Challenger teams have struggled with in the past, but 7-14 is a slightly different meta here. As Wind and Rain, they do still have those teamfight tools. It's going to take a mistake out of Giants in order to allow them back into the game.
And we were talking about how Ruin has stepped into this more carry-orientated role in the top lane. He's gone for a Mortal Reminder second item on that Gnar. He wants to shred through tanks as quickly as he can and stop the sap magic passive coming out from Aaron.
Right, it's also good against Larssen, as Larssen will be in team fights trying to sustain himself up. I feel like it's a little bit of hubris at this point. Gnar Frozen Mallet is just so good. Not that a Maokai is really going to run away from you very quickly, but it provides you extra tankiness, it provides you extra damage, sticking potential. The thing about this is I look at Mortal Reminder Gnar and I say, okay, that's going to be a very squishy mini Gnar, and if you can find the time to get somebody else out in that side lane to kill the Gnar, then suddenly Giants are down a member, down one of those team fight presences, down one of those carries.
And that's been the way that War have won games in the past. They get to the late game perhaps slightly behind, a couple of thousand gold here or there, and then they manage to collapse on someone when the vision lapses, when the wards expire or the team's on the other side of the map, and they get these kills and get back into the game.
And it will take a lapse of vision, because Wind and Rain haven't got a Tahm Kench. They've got a Sivir though, and they're going to run right down the middle lane.
They're on the hunt for minitroupax. The Hemo Plate comes down. It's not going to be enough damage. Jactroll puts down the Glacial Fissure, and here comes the flank from Gilius. He jumps in. He says, let's bounce, but Woolite says, not today. Running away from the bouncy castle like a clown at a party. Ruin's going to get jumped on by down. The Nature's Grass comes out, as well as Armin tries to disengage the fight. War running away for their lives. They will sacrifice Armin, but jizuke does not want them to escape. The flank, the knockback, AOD has to flash, and War limp away with only 4 members alive.
Giants turn for the Baron again from that play. They're a little bit bruised from the initial engage, but they were able to disengage in the middle lane with the Braum. One of the strengths of this Braum is you just throw out the ultimate, and suddenly nobody can continue chasing you. Look, with this Blade of the Ruin King, Wits End, Kog'maw able to very quickly chunk through that Baron. And that really is the death knell for Wind and Rain in game 1 here. That was an opportunity of a fight, but Giants backing away just well enough to be able to deny it. Look, Woolite was already 3/4 health at the time this started, and minitroupax knows he's just going to kite back, kite out of the danger situation, and turn the damage back on as Gilius enters the fight. Jizuke was so far away that this was actually a 3 versus 4 for the majority until Ruin and Jizuke actually show up. Stuns land, and even with the Maokai ultimate coming through, it wasn't enough to take down any member of Giants.
And I like the doggedness from Giants here. They keep going, they keep pushing, they keep forcing war away because they know the Kog'Maw and the Braum can start up that Baron. And if they get it, they have the way of pushing into this base, especially with Ruin on a side lane, getting up towards a Spirit Visage. He is going to be basically unstoppable for any member of War.
But there is one thing, as we see Aaron throw out another ultimate, there is one thing that could end up stopping them, as War want to go aggressive again.
Engage onto Jizuke, the Hemo play comes down as well. They do get the stun up towards the side, but here comes Ruin. Let's bounce. Gilius back, Aaron in the midst of them all now. What can War do to hold out? Not much, as Giants just rip through 2 members. And even though War start the fight, Giants end it.
Yeah, Baron buff's still on. Giants a little bit low on health. They may want to just reset on this one of the Larssen. Otherwise, Larssen could look to clean up, but with Aaron and Dan not alive, Wind and Rain do not have their engage tools to come through. They're going to defend the lanes for long enough. I was wondering whether, if this Thornmail ends up getting completed, or at least the Bramble Vest plus more tanky items, whether that'll be enough against minitroupax, Ruins damage out in the side lane as well. But another team fight going in favor of Giants is going to just hemorrhage more structures going in favor of them.
A 7-1 scoreline in favor of Giants. Their first game as a united team here in Berlin, and they are looking incredibly strong. They remind me so much of Schalke from last split, or the Schalke we expected to see in playoffs. Clean play, not giving up too many disadvantages, advantages, not giving up towers, not giving up gold leads, not giving up vision control. Giants look pretty unstoppable at the moment.
Yeah, only giving up the 1 kill so far, and look, Aaron tried to use the ultimate, was expecting Giants to be kiting back as the rest of his team actually moved forward for the engage. But look, Wind and Rain try as best as they can to team fight this one through, but Gilius able to drag Aaron through the fight as Ruin was in position there as well. And the thing is, at this point for Giants, they've just completed another key item medic. Guinzu's Rage Blade completed, so I was talking about the Bramble Vest for Aaron. It might be good against the Kog'Maw, but look, now he's doing quite a high percentage of magic damage. It's not just about that AD, so he's got that double on-hit effect on both the Wit's End. Got the Blade of the Ruined King, got the Bio-Arcane Barrage.
And we talked about War scaling into the late game. Said that perhaps Kog'Maw would be the only one to be able to match them if they got past the 30-35 minute mark. Well, a Kog'Maw that is this beefy is going to be able to match you for a long, long time, especially with the protection that a Braum and a Zac can allow you. Looking at other items, Jizuke's finished up that Void Staff as well, almost a complete item ahead of Larssen on that Vladimir.
And then you look up at the top lane, Aaron, 1 and kind of 2 halves of an item. Of different items. And Ruin on the other side has 3.5 items.
And he's going tanky as well now. That was the worry when he got the Mortal Reminder. Would he be able to be tanky enough? Well, he's got a Spirit Visage, building the Warden's Mail as well. Lots of different options for that item now. And with a 11,000 gold lead at the 30-minute marker, 3,000 gold lead in the top lane, a 3,000 gold lead in the mid lane, and a 2,000 gold lane in the AD carry position. Giants just look like they cannot be deterred from taking this game 1.
Yeah, well, with the Baron buff expired on Giants, they're a little more hesitant to push in. You can see Dan is still pretty tanky here. Has the Cinder Hulk, the Knight's Vow completed already. There is that opportunity. If Woolite stays alive throughout the entirety of a fight, he's got that Rapid Fire Cannon now as well. He is likely to need the Last Whisper item, likely Lord Dominic's, before they can take the fight and know they're going to win it. But maybe there's that opportunity where Larssen can distract people for long enough, Woolite can bounce those ricochets, get the crits all the way through the fight, and maybe end up winning. But Wind and Rain probably have 1 more shot at a team fight. And if that backfires, Giants will probably walk through the base quickly and end game 1.
But that's all they need. That's all War have ever needed, is that 1 shot, that 1 team fight that starts to get them back into the game. And maybe it's going to be set up here in the top side. Jactroll is going to get knocked back. Will be able to just stand beside minitroupax to keep himself safe for the time being. He's gone towards the Lock of the Iron Solari. Looks like it's a Knight's Vow next.
Yep.
Something we tend to see out of melee support.
Yeah, on the other side, AOD for a while now has had that Ardent Sensor completed, trying to just augment some of those heals, shields, and of course the attack speed that comes through.
This Janna build is what I call the Diamond 5 support main Janna build, because it's how you get to Diamond as a support main. If you want to just win games, you play Janna and you build Ardent Sensor. Don't even need support items, you don't even need Sightstone. It's just Ardent Sensor, put a shield down, excellent, well done. You're done. You're done for the next 3 minutes. Another shield.
That means in solo queue you have to have a competent AD carry.
No, because you can put it on anyone in your team, because there's so many, like, well, for a while there were so many AD-based auto-attacking junglers and top laners and even mid laners to some degree. Just having the shield and then other people trading badly wins you the game. I say that as a Diamond 5 support main who only plays Thresh. I refuse to accept the free wins that I would obviously get with Janna because my macro play is just that good.
So what's the Diamond 5 Thresh build then?
So you miss your E.
Okay.
You only use Q in lane. You can only use the death sentence. You can't actually flay people.
Do you throw it out on cooldown?
On cooldown.
Okay.
Okay, and you actually max it so you get a reduced cooldown.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
And you lantern just out of the person's reach. So it's like, oh, I know you've got flash, so I'm going to lantern a flash in like 3 steps away.
Got it.
And then they have to try and get there, but they just don't quite make it. Every single time you're like, mate, I put the lantern down. Don't know what you're doing. You just have to click it.
I'm looking forward to seeing any Thresh performance like this. Probably not in this series, but Giants right now, they're setting up for the Baron. Only 4 seconds until it actually spawns, so a lot of vision control going down around here. There's Dan looking potentially for that fight. Adaptive Helm completed on Aaron. May give him a little bit of survivability, but I mean, that Kog'Maw, that's one of the champions that Adaptive Helm does do well against. Repeat instances of damage, but look, in comes the fight.
Knock up, Woolite has to flash away. The Nature's Grasp is coming down, though, and War might be able to turn this around, but Ruin jumps in with the Gnar, the knockback, the Hemo Plague. A massive fight erupts in the War jungle, and Giants are coming out on top. A double kill for Mini, 9 kills to 1. They can turn their eyes straight towards this inhibitor.
Oh, Adaptive Helm or not, minitroupax just walked right the way through the forest that Aaron was trying to set up in front of him. They don't even need this Baron buff now. With the front line down, Giants may just push in for this and look for the first win.
And looking for game 1 of this best of 5. A good knock up from AOD stops Gilius in his tracks. Larsen's trying to get onto Ruin in the top side, and Giants will be distracted and dissuaded from going any further for the time being.
Ran out of minions at that point as Giants were looking to push in for a win.
It's a despicable problem, running out of minions.
Well, they do follow whoever is the most evil person on the planet, so I guess right now Giants probably not that evil. This is the engage. Watch how quickly minitroupax shreds through Aaron. Couple of auto attacks. Oh, there we go. Okay, I've finally got my attack speed coming through too. Of course, Syndra had a lot to do with that as well. It was quite a lot of damage comes from the Syndra too.
And that's why this point of the game is perfect for Giants, because Syndra hasn't started falling off in inverted commas yet. Right. She hasn't got to the sort of super late game Syndra where everyone has magic resist. But because your Kog'Maw's got ahead, he's at almost late game Kog'Maw status. He's got 3 items, he's got a BF sword. Basically, 4 items.
Yeah, I was going to say the fourth one snuck in.
Basically completed Kog'Maw build apart from that final, whatever it's going to be, a Bloodthirster, you know, or Infinity Edge, just chuck it on there for the extra DPS.
Yeah, might even find Phantom Dancer coming through for some of that damage reduction.
I'm actually really impressed by minitroupax's build here as well, because early in the split, he was going QSS as almost a first item a lot of the time into heavy CC compositions. Yeah, he was doing the steelback, so you'd get like BF Sword QSS, especially into Varus lanes or heavy CC teams. Here, you're against a team that all they want to do is dive onto you.
Right.
And he said, I trust my team well enough to not get a QSS.
Yeah, that's a great boost of confidence. I mean, remember, he stayed in lane for 100 CS, so had so much gold by that point. Giants are like, oh, well, you know, we're basically winning the game and crushing top lanes, so don't worry about the QSS. Yeah. And again, it's confidence, right, that we didn't see from him in previous weeks. In goes Gilius.
Knocked back once again. There's the Nature's Grasp. It will lock up all of Giants apart from Ruin, but he's going to continue stepping forward. Nexus Tower is low as the supers push onto that, but Gilius wants kills instead. Aaron is the first to fall. 10 kills to 1. Giants are rolling over their opposition, and Woolite. Oh. Holy moly, that's a lot of damage. minitroupax goes deep as well. The Nexus Towers will fall. Larssen chucks out a Hemo Plague, and Giants say, let's bounce all the way to a 1-0 victory over Wind and Rain.
even the teleport coming through to keep the last Gilius blob alive on the fountain.
Well, it's because it was 11-1 then.
I know, they didn't want to drop another kill. Had to stay binary on that one. How fast did Woolite... I don't speak binary or read it or anything. How fast did Woolite die? That's when you look at the death recap and it's just like, you took 10,000 damage in 0.1 of a second.
Press R is a... Unleash Power is a very skillful button to have as a Syndra, and Giants actually played a very skillful game as well. Their macro was on point, their positioning very good as well, and they played around win conditions that presented themselves at certain portions of the map.
Right, only really one mistake coming through, and that was an individual error out of Ruin in the early game where he was just pushed too far up on Gnar and down ganked him. And that kind of error is the easy one to fix because you just say, okay, don't do that again next time. And luckily, most players will go, yes, I pushed up too far. And that draft into the gameplay is kind of how you have to look at these compositions when we came out of Champion Select, looking at, okay, Vladimir, Sivir, great late game, but you gotta get there first.
How do you get there, though, if you're War here? Because we know they're going to draft around late game. We know that's what they want to do. It's the playstyle that suits them. Giants just seem to be too good early on to be able to get to that late game portion.
I think the difficulty is when you draft 2 tanks into a losing matchup top lane, into a losing matchup mid lane, into a scaling matchup in the bottom lane as well. It's not exactly, if you're not winning anywhere on the map, you're not likely to win. That's the biggest problem. Like, you need at least one winning lane with this type of setup. And not that I would advocate saying, hey, swap out the Maokai for like an Aurelia to make sure you beat the Gnar, but don't put yourself in a situation where you allow them to have the Gnar and then put yourself in a losing matchup. Because going Maokai Sejuani as 1 and 2 basically says, okay, our whole top side of the map is going to be really weak for the first 6 levels.
That it does, and just going to have another quick look at that last team fight here, Stress, because the game had been building to a crescendo when we said perhaps War would be able to come back if they got one good fight.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it is,
yeah.
Because what we're going to see is Wind and Rain now try and take the fight. Woolite already low mana at this point, trying to heal himself back up, and Giants engage right through it, and we're about to see the super slow-mo of Woolite getting wrecked. Because I don't know where most of that damage came from. I mean, jizuke hits him with a Q. Gilius is in there as well. Just a devastating team fight at the end of it. Giants quickly moving through Wind and Rain's base to end that game. Only 35 minutes on the clock, just under.
The last time these two teams met, both games were under the 30-minute mark. It was week 1 of the Challenger Series. Both games ended in 29 minutes and about 40 seconds or so. The Wind and Rain roster was slightly different as they had to play with 3 substitutes, but still perhaps an omen of things to come. Giants looking pretty dominant in that first game. Wind and Rain need to work out how they're going to get back into it. And I'd like to see them put more emphasis on Woolite, because he is a player who's had some of the highest damage percentages of that team. Over a third of the team's damage comes from that AD carry role, and he's very good at translating gold into damage as well. Yeah,
and I think I would like to see Wind and Rain set him up for success. Difficult with the Tristana banned out in the draft so early on, but now as we head towards game 2, looking forward to seeing what Woolite gets his hands on.
Giants took the lead in game 1. We'll see if War can strike back when we return.
Guys, this is our moment. It will start now.
Very low, but there is the stun onto Ruin. He tries to jump away. He's going to flash as well. And with the boomerang toss, may be able to escape. Dan flashes in, does get burst blood.
No flash on him, no flash. Okay. Go drag.
Emo play comes down as well. They do get the stun up towards the side, but here comes Ruin. Let's bounce. Gilius back. Owen in the midst of them all now. What can War do to hold out? Not much, as Giants just ripped through 2 members. The knockback that Emo played, a massive fight erupts in the War jungle, and Giants are coming out on top. One near victory over Wind and Rain.